The scheme itself, as Councillor Slack has just said, has been welcomed by all of us as councillors who have had the opportunity to look at schemes within our own wards and support them. In many cases, support them with funds that have gone on to pump prime projects and bring in money from elsewhere. And all of us who have looked at the suggestions put forward by groups within our own wards have welcomed those suggestions and supported them. There have been one or two that had to be rejected because they haven't met the criteria. I've certainly rejected a couple within my own ward, but at the same time I've just supported 2 more applications within my own ward that used up I think very nearly £800. But in both cases they are pump priming and will bring in more money and will help a significant number of people within the ward. I do understand where members will be coming from when they see a reduction of 10% being proposed this year and next year. But I would ask councillors to consider how a rejection of this proposal would be seen by staff of the council, the officers of the council, who within all of their own departments have seen major cuts to their own budgets and have had to react accordingly. This at 10% in each of 2 years is, in my view, not a large reduction, and is certainly one that can be accommodated within the scheme. I'll move the recommendations, Chairman.
Councillor Wild.
Thank you. I'm more than happy to second this. I mean, I've been somebody that supported this from the very off, and whilst I agree that I don't like to see the reduction, I think that, as Councillor Katz just said, it echoes what we're having to do as a council. With regard to finishing the scheme in 2019, I, for one, if I'm re-elected, will be fighting tooth and nail to get this scheme set up again in 2019.
Councillor Martin Burford.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think the question I was going to ask has been answered by Councillor Cath, actually. That's about the scheme going forward post 2019. So that obviously will be a decision for the next council. But I'd like to echo what Councillor Slack said, actually. I regret the fact that this fund is being reduced by 10%. As I said earlier, it's roughly the same figure as being spent on the member representatives. And of course, some of that money is coming out of general reserve, so I'd have thought the 10%, it's only a small amount we're talking about, but it's just the negative vibes it gives to the public and to groups if they read or see on the website that the fund has been reduced from £1,000 to £900. That's just at the time when local groups and organisations are getting accustomed to the idea that this fund exists and then they can apply for funding from it. So I certainly can't. I support the other clauses in the. Now we've had the answer to that question about number 4. I can support the other clauses, but I can't support number 2 about the reduction to £900. I'm afraid.
Councillor Swindle.
Thank you, Chair. Question and a comment. Question, Chair. I know this has sort of been covered, but I want to be very clear on this. We say it will conclude in 2019. So can I seek assurance that we are voting tonight to wrap it up at the end of this council's term, and then when this council comes back, whoever's lucky enough to come back in the following term, we will have a vote on whether we continue with it or not. Can I just seek clarification?
Yes.
That is it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Tibbon.
Chair,
sorry.
Very quick comment. No, I just think that's a sensible idea, because we've got to be very careful with all the money that we have. and we don't know what the financial situation will be in 2 or 3 years' time. So I appreciate that we haven't simply knocked on the head now to try and save some money. My only thing is this 10%, it's peanuts. It really is. I mean, it's almost like a little guilt trip sweetener that we're carrying this on, but we'll just knock 10% off. Well, that 10%, that £100, will make a huge difference to a village hall committee, a scouts group, a Girl Guides group, or any other community group. So I just think that £100 is such an insignificant amount in the grand scale of things that I think we should just keep it as it is and then look again in 2019.
Councillor Tivenham, no.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask, in May 15, when the scheme was announced, and we were told it was going to be £1,000 a year to distribute for local projects, was it intended then that it should remain at £1,000 a year for 4 years?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Timmins, yes, I believe the answer is that it was to remain at £1,000, but given the financial pressures that the council is facing, and just to touch on a point raised by Councillor Swindle, for those members who were at the GNR committee, we have been in conversations with other partners about reducing the grants that we provide to support the work that they're doing, so that it is in line with what we're doing across the board.
Councillor Botham.
A question and then a comment, please.
Okay.
First of all, may I ask what was the criteria for reducing percentage to 10% for this particular funding? Please, I know you've touched on it twice before, but could you just clarify that for me?
Just to go back on to my previous point, Councillor Botham, we have been in negotiation with several of our partners and organisations that we work with to reduce the funding that we provide by 10% each year for the next 3 years, as was identified in the report that went to GNR, and this seemed consistent with that.
Councillor, sorry,
I've got a
Vivian.
comment as well. Yeah, I feel that this seems to be salami slicing, that we're reducing things by 10% without taking into account the impact on residents and voluntary organisations that enhances the lives of our community. And I think I said that in the Governance and Resources Committee too. So I also think that on top of that, this is bad timing. We've just given this House extra remuneration, and on the same agenda, we're taking away money from the residents of the Derbyshire Dales. I think that's very sad indictment, and I'm not going to vote for this on that.
Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I echo what Asher said and echo what Councillor Catter said. This is in the spirit of the fact that we are in difficult financial straits and that the officers have recommended a reduction in their areas, and I don't feel I can vote against that because we should be all working together in harmony with our officers as members. Imagine taking it the reverse route and saying, well, the members want to keep their monies and we seem to be screaming and shouting and stamping our feet about it. Councillor Swindle is right, it is peanuts, but in the scheme of things it's the moral issue here, I think, that is important. Can we not have a strapline, Sandra, that says this will be reviewed in the new council?
Sorry.
I'm happy to put that in the minutes if that would make members happy that it will be reviewed in 2019.
Thank you.
Councillor Flitter.
Thank you, Chair. Difficult one, this, because we've all got our own views on how we spend our £1,000 or, in fact, £900, which really, as I said at the leaders group last week, although it's a very welcome token, it is only a token, and I think we should be putting more money into the community rather than just £1,000. But as been said, we are in hard times, and when we talk about the morality, there is a moral issue that goes with, you know, giving members increases and at the same time taking it away from the community. I still don't know how to go on this one, because if we look at the scheme and we look at where members sit, rural against semi-urban, if we look against 1-member wards and 3-member wards, it can be a very different picture. And I totally agree with Councillor Tibenham when he said that when this scheme started, we were promised £1,000 for 4 years. And again, with Councillor Swindle, it is absolute peanuts. We're not going to make that much savings by reducing this. But I just feel that, I mean, I'll give you an instance. Today, we had in Matlock All Saints, we've had an instance where we want to give monies to a certain group, and not one of us, not one of the 3, replied until after a discussion early this morning that I had with Councillor Stevens, how much should we give? Because we wanted to support to a tune higher than the level we could. But with a reduced amount of money, we had to reduce that commitment. And now I think we've come to a general consensus. But they're the problems we've got. I mean, 7, 8 groups will benefit. In the urban areas, when the semi-urban areas, we've got far more groups than that will be applying. And it's like when we sit on the Ernest Bailey Trust, that is going the same way, because the money is just a token, because on that you can only spend the interest that you make on the capital. So I hope, and I do agree that this is a 4-year programme. We should relook at it in 2019 if we're lucky enough to get re-elected. But I think also that the commitment that we made, £1,000 for 4 years, should be honoured.
Councillor Hobson.
Chair, I'm in agreement with many of the comments that my other colleagues have made this evening. My main comment is this has been a really easy project money for us to allocate, and can I thank Ross Hesian for all her hard work in assisting us. Thank you.
Councillor Mike Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Chair. I did like that comment my colleague made about salami slicing. 10% might seem a small amount, but I'm very minded of something that the late, great Tony Hancock made in his sketch, The Blood Donor, when asked to give a drop of blood. And he replied, it may be a small amount to you, but it's an armful for me. So, you know, things are relative, aren't they? The one thing I hope is not occurring this evening is too many 3-line whips floating about, and that all members will actually listen to what is being said, and in the spirit of open democracy, forget some political differences and act in the best interest of all our communities. You know, what is good for this council as an authority is not necessarily that which is in the best interest of your communities. There are subtle differences, let me tell you. We might have a duty of care to this authority, but we have an even greater obligation towards those residents that placed faith in us to represent them. No doubt many of you will be saying to yourselves, we can't afford to continue this initiative. And I admit it's costing some £34,000 a year. But at the end of the day, everything costs money, and it's a question of priorities. For me, this local projects fund, in essence, has been one of the most proactive and pound for pound, one of the most successful of recent council initiatives. If there is a willingness, money can be found. So I would ask you, all of you, to think about what it is that you're actually voting for here in terms of the impact and damage that it might produce to those groups and organisations that are hoping that we can provide some financial support for. I have to say I was one of those who was absolutely enthusiastic about the inception of this Community Leadership Fund, and like many of you who have voiced it, I thought it was £1,000 a year continued until the beginning of the next council. What we appear to be doing here, if you went by the rubric of the recommendations, is actually saying that this fund concludes in 2019. You couldn't have a more arbitrary or conclusive statement. So I'm glad to hear, and I hope I've heard correct, that we in fact intend to amend that, because at the end of the day, the only aspect of this that I would support is that we subject it to a scrutiny and review at the end of 2019, and then leave it to the incoming council to make a decision on that. These funds, I can tell you firsthand, and reading the assessments that were produced by Ros Hessian, have done no end of good. A defibrillator for Clifton Village, support for an after-school club in Tideswell. My colleague has spoken about a BMX track for youngsters in Middleton. The list is endless. You know, the recommendations here, taken at face value, I am afraid, belie the real spirit of this district council. They give voice yet again to the perception of a spendthrift, parsimonious authority intent on slicing away funding until nothing remains. That's a very, very damning indictment, I know, but it's one that the perception is there. The very least we council members should do, as I suggest, is throw out these recommendations and bring one single one back, which is to review it after it concludes its 4-year period, and then leave the decision to the next council. Because who knows, as Colin Swindle said, what the financial position of the authority might be there. Your priorities also may have changed.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Morley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to strike a positive note, and perhaps members might not want to be kind of obsessing about this particular grant. The focus or the function of these small grants is to lever in other monies from other grant pots. And anybody who has any experience in writing grant applications, as I've been doing for many, many years, will tell you that you should at least be looking for 2 for 1. So every £1 that you get from one pot, you should be looking to double it for another. So in that spirit, I would like to volunteer to run a free series of workshops, half-day workshops, for all sorts of community groups, social groups, enterprise groups, whatever, right from across the district, to help them maximise this as seed corn money. If they choose to do that, they might find that there are other pots that they don't know about that they can actually make up the difference or more so. So, and that partly, hopefully, justifying my role as member representative for regeneration. So there's an offer on the table, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Irene Ratcliffe.
Well, thank you, Chair. I feel that this was meant to highlight the leadership, the community leadership of councillors, and that the changing nature of government, local government, was going to have to be within the enabling role through the community leadership of its councillors who are either elected or are signed up to serve their community. I feel quite strongly about this. It seems to me to be very tokenistic to remove that, and I certainly take umbrage whomever that said, well, other staff, it's not good if they see we don't get the percentage cut when everything else is being cut. Actually, we're sitting around here, we have millions of pounds that we're cutting and trying to work with. That is terribly divisive. If officers and members of staff feel that we get that money in order to do what we want, then I think that that is the wrong attitude within a council of worrying. I've worked with officers on some of the project money. I haven't spent all mine. I find it, though, very undermining. It's the perception as well, and I feel very uncomfortable. I have put my faith in the way in which local government can move and change by the nature of the input of what ordinary councillors, not those that are in position to say, well, we'll have some money here and there for the priority capital programmes, etc. I talk about what we're doing on the ground, day in, day out, trying to help people. So I find it very difficult to accept this, because the perception out there is we're just giving money out as a handout without any thought and without any process. Now, I'm sure that's not what's meant by the report that's come here, but I don't think that it is good. I think that we have to be respected and we have to work as community leaders. I take it quite an umbrage at the leader of the council, and he's not here now, and I don't very often criticise, but to think that we are here to make headlines on terms of what we will put into manifestos, that is wrong. We're here because we care, and members that don't care aren't here to represent their communities. So for me, I think in terms of this, it is a downward step from the vision that the Chief Executive spoke about, the changing nature of how we help our community partners and how we can pump prime to get volunteers to do things, to help, to enable. It turns me off as though I don't want to be associated with the ethos of what has just been put forward through to us. So I will not be voting for this report.
Councillor Slack. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Councillor Salt.
Thank you, Chair. I too am troubled somewhat by the proposed reduction, but I understand and I get the consistency perhaps that the officers are trying to convey in reducing it. You can make an argument not to reduce every single item that the officers have to go through and look through to find savings. You can make an argument not to reduce a grant for this, not to reduce a service or the level of service that you provide to a community. And I think, for me, reducing this by the same amount as reducing the grants just appears to be a consistent approach. It's great to be able to be on the ground and engage and be part of projects and be part of the community coming to the district council and saying, can we have some money for this, and seeing the difference it makes. I agree. But another part for me as a councillor, I've been on the ground, is being able to answer the hard questions of why has it been reduced, and being able to explain there has to be reductions. We don't have the money from government. It's not coming. There has to be reductions throughout the board, and all we're trying to do is be consistent and fair to everybody. And I feel that the reduction that is put forward echoes that and puts that forward to the public and the people we deal with, and that's one of the difficult questions we're going to have to face And one of the things we're going to have to explain to the people that vote for us. But I think if you explain it well, and you explain, that, if you let me finish, if you explain that, you know, yes, you've asked for this much, it's been reduced, I'll have to, you know, we want to give you the money, but we'll have to reduce it, it's been reduced, then I would hope the constituents understand. You talk about the massive difference it makes. Of course it makes a massive difference. But everything makes a massive difference. Any grant that you don't get, a reduction in your grant, a reduction in service, it all makes a massive difference. It's a subjective point of view. To be objective and be consistent, I agree that there has to be reductions. What I would say is, the second year reductions that we're voting on today, that gives me difficulty. I think if there's to be a reduction in the second year, then that could be something that's looked at in the second year. It wouldn't have to be looked at in a whole today and say 10% today and 10% next year. That's something that I agree could be looked at in a year's time. I'm nearly finished. A question, please. The criteria that appears to be changed to an outcome-focused delivery of the grant, could I ask who would assess that outcome-focused delivery? Would that be something that's assessed before the application gets to ward members, or would it be something that's assessed jointly with ward members? Because I think that will make a big difference. Thank you.
Sandra.
I think one of the benefits of the scheme is that the member is the decision maker, and it's the member that determines what is community benefit. What we're trying to help you with is more of an objective assessment on the impact that it will have. I think you've all got some kind of cash-rich organisations in your community that you may want to help, but that small amount won't have such a big impact. So we're helping you make that decision. You may get some comments from officers, but at the end of the day, the decision is yours, and we do try and help you if something looks immediately outside of the scope of the scheme. But we don't make the decision, you do.
Councillor Finesse.
Thank you, Chair. Well, if I'm still here in 2019, I'll certainly be voting for this scheme to continue, because I think it's been a really great scheme. I've made good use of it, and I've got quite a few more schemes coming on, you know, to make use of the money. And I think in 2019, when we come to discuss it again, we can decide then whether it's going to be 900, 1,000, or even maybe 1,200. Who knows? But that'll be in 2019. But as we are at the moment, you know, we have a policy. I mean, the officers are quite right. We're reducing others by 10%, and we have to be consistent. You know, this shouldn't be different in the great scheme of things. So I will be supporting it, but I am sorry to see it being reduced because of my community.
Thank you. I've got two more speakers, and I'll ask Councillor Catt to sum up. Councillor Slack now, please.
Thank you, Chair. When this scheme first came in, it was set for 4 years, as we've already said, and now we're breaking that promise. When I came on the council, I came to represent my community, the people of my community. I didn't come for money or anything. I came here to represent my community, to do the best for my community. And this has been a success. There's no doubt about it. It's been a tremendous success. And now we're going to spur 10% off, 10% off, 10% off till it's gone. We should honour what we've already said and look at it again in 19, not Pete purring bits off till it's wrecking it. I mean, when your communities come to you and you say, well, the district council's taking that money off us, taking that money off, and they look at the agenda, what's happened tonight, and we find that they've spent a lot of money on other projects on item 9. So it's totally unjustified to take this money away and then give money away in another way. It's totally unjustified. We should honour this till 1919. You know, your community will be looking at you to honour this till 1919. You're letting your community down if you don't honour it. So I ask for you to change this, and we can make it an amendment on this and honour it till 1919 and not leave it alone till 1919, and then we can decide what we're doing. Not keep purring off 10%, 10%. It's totally unjustified.
Councillor Massey.
Well, as everyone else says, I'm not exactly happy about the 10% reduction. Would rather it would, as we agreed, stay for the 4 years. But I'm still willing to support that. My question is, it says that it's if we're taking these pay cuts, which this reduction, which means that some that come to us, we might not be able to give them the full amount that they're asking for. Now, I see it says that it's one-off application, and that from next year we will not be carrying anything we haven't spent forward. So would we be able to say to them, look, we can't give you the full amount this now, but if at the end of the year we have any left, can they come back to us then? Or can we say, can we now give them the extra instead of that money just disappearing, basically?
Sandra, Wash.
I think what we're encouraging in the review of the scheme is that we should avoid repeat applications by the same organisation. So you wouldn't be able to do it specifically as that. So you might have to time your applications and use your fund creatively, so that if you know you have an application in that you can't fund now, you might want to pause that until the year turns, so you can give the right money there.
You might want to have a session with Councillor Morley. As I said, I've just got two last. Councillor Pawley, please, now, and then we'll go to summing up. Angela.
Somebody's mentioned that this money is seed money, and it's something that will encourage others to match fund. I think we ought to be taking the long-term view. This is not only seed money to bring in other money, but it's also money that brings in goodwill from the community. And we as a council are going to find ourselves in years to come more and more stretched. We're going to need more community involvement. And if we take away, even this £100, if we take away that, we look as if we're not encouraging them. At the moment, the comeback we get is so positive that anything that detracts from that, I would not support. We are going to need communities to work for us in the future, and what we're doing here is giving them benefit, which they're all appreciating, and then suddenly saying we're going to take some of it away. We have in the past had communities who've not thought much of this council. In fact, it's a hard job now to get them to think well of us. They're going to start going backwards again. I just think members ought to be thinking of that.
Ash, did you want to make a comment?
If I may, Chair, just to come on to that point, Councillor Pawley, I do appreciate the comments that are being made. Just 2 points that I don't want us to lose sight of. One that we make reference to in the report, which is where members can work together to pool their funds where that's possible. But also, we have a community engagement department who work very closely with community groups and individuals and have been quite successful in drawing in external funding to support those initiatives. So there's still that option that we can support them with.
Last speaker, Councillor Shirley.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just listening to the debate as it's been going on in a way it's concerning, because I think what we're doing is running down a very good, useful scheme that a lot of us use to deliver money to the local community. We're looking at hardened times in terms of budget. We're looking at a 10% cutback. What we don't want to do is lose the benefit of the 90% we're retaining, and that's where we want to concentrate our time, and that is being lost. And so I think I will vote in favour of this. We have to cut our cloth to fit it, and that applies to everything the council does. But we've been able to maintain 90% of the funding, and I think that's a big step.
Thank you, members, for all your contributions. Now, I'm sorry, that's it now. Is it a valid? It's been moved. It's been moved and seconded, and I want to take it to the vote.
It's for my own point before I vote, to make sure I'm clear with what I am voting. Yeah.
You can ask for clarification. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. This is all I'm asking for, clarification.
It's been moved and seconded. Yeah.
Yeah. The fact of section 2, when it says the local funds 2017, 18, 18, 19 reduced by 10%, is that 10% both years, or we're just going to 900 for the both years? That's what I want to clarify, please.
Ash.
Just to be clear, Councillor Bull, it's 10% in the first year and 10% again in the second year.
Right.
Point of order, Chair.
If it's a valid one, what is it, Councillor Ratcliffe? Can we be brief, please?
Well, perhaps I will be advised by the officer,
Yeah.
Chair. There was a proposal amendment from Councillor Slack, and there wasn't a second, but I seconded it in terms of it for it to be an amendment. Thank you.
Just ask the officer.
Would you express your amendment again?
Yeah, the amendment is there's a scheme to stop what we proposed at the first stop and then review it in 2090.
Yeah. Just in technical terms, you need to add or delete words to the original proposition that doesn't negate it, and that would appear on the face of it to be an opposite to the actual motion on the table.
Yeah, it's amendment though. We'll look at it again in 19. It is amendment, really.
No, an amendment has to be an addition and deletion of words in the original proposition, but can't have the effect of being a negative. So the only thing that I could suggest that you could add words to would potentially be on recommendation 4, which would add, and that the scheme be reviewed in 2019. The rest would be a negative.
That's not acceptable because you'd be taking the 10% away.
Yeah.
Yes, so no.
That, in accordance with the Constitution,
Well,
isn't a valid amendment.
Originally, it was, in the old minutes, it should be left alone. It's
I'm sorry, I don't think... we asked the officer's advice at these difficult times when it does get a bit tricky, okay? I think it's the motion has been moved and seconded. We've had a very full debate, okay? All those in favour, please show.
That's 21.
All those against, please show. Firmly, please. One on this side.
11.
And is that everybody? Okay, hands down, please. And all those who are abstaining. One abstainer, okay. The numbers, please.
21 in favour, 11 against, with 1 abstention.
Okay, the motion has been carried. Thank you very much. Item 15. This is really to note the draft of programme of meetings 2017-18. Sandra, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just to update that, Chairman. We talked about mandatory training earlier on in the agenda, and we have some dates in this calendar of meetings which I need to update. The dates are now 13, 20 and 29th of June, and they will be confirmed when this goes for casting in stone at the annual meeting. Also, just to give you some advance notice of dates which will be confirming tomorrow, the annual meeting on the 18th of May will also be running a workshop from 4 p.m. That'll be on the leisure review, with the consultant talking about the leisure review moving forward to a draft specification. The draft specification is due to go to the Community and Environment Committee for the first look on the 15th of June, and we'll be calling a special meeting with Council on the 22nd of June. Don't worry if you can't remember those, I'll be emailing out tomorrow, so it's just advance notice. And then just for clarification, the dates are still pending for the Planning Committee in Ashbourne in 2018.
Okay, Councillor Catt. Councillor Stevens, sorry.
Right, that's a little problem. I may have to revise one of those.
Okay.
That's obviously my deliberate mistake of the
Right,
night.
okay. Thank you for
Don't
pointing
make
that
them
out.
often.
Apart from that, do you move the dates, Councillor Stevens? Right, understood.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilde, second that. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 16, the revised scheme of delegation to officers. Sandra, do you just want to explain this, please?
Right, this is the scheme of delegation to officers, and it's to take account of the interim management arrangements following the departure of Heidi McDougall So Ash has taken on the majority of those responsibilities, and if he needs to take any of these decisions, he needs to be able to prove that he's got authority to make them and waft a bit of paper out in front of the appropriate people. So we have to document any delegations that last longer than 6 months, and they're set out on the appendix, the activities and decisions that are now being transferred.
Councillor Catt.
Yes, Chairman. I'll move the recommendation, and make a similar comment to the one I made earlier, in that with a senior member of CLT going, there has been a need to shuffle responsibilities around, and it has been heartening to see the way in which members of CLT have responded to this and taken on additional responsibilities. As so often happens when somebody leaves, opportunities open up for other people, and in an organisation like this, that's always to be welcomed. So I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Wild. Okay. All those. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Item 17, sealing of documents. Oh, Councillor Atkin, you've right to move it. I'd love you. Councillor Donnery saying, all those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. We have to formally exclude the public and press. Councillor Atkin, have you moved that? Thank you very much. Seconded, Councillor Swindle. All those in favour, please show. And then to receive the exempt minutes of the licensing committee, Councillor Monks.